Have you ever wondered what would happen if a secret from your first love showed up on your wedding day? Imagine holding a letter in your hands, right before walking down the aisle, words from the one you once thought was your forever. What if those words carried a truth so powerful it could change everything? This is Emily's story, where love, betrayal, and shocking revelations collide. Stay with us until the end, because what she discovered still leaves everyone asking, what would I have done? On the morning of her wedding day, Emily's heart raced in a rhythm she couldn't control. The church bells were silent for now, but the weight of the moment pressed against her chest. She had spent years imagining this day, walking toward Daniel, the man everyone said was perfect for her. The white dress, the flowers, the music, it was all in place, yet her nerves carried a tremor that no smile could hide. She told herself it was normal, that every bride felt this mix of joy and fear. But deep down, she sensed something else waiting to be revealed. As she sat quietly in a side room, voices outside whispered, laughter echoed, and footsteps rushed with preparations. The air carried the scent of roses, sweet and heavy, like it was trying to calm her. Then, almost unnoticed, a hand slipped through the door and left a small envelope on the table beside her. No one spoke. No one explained. The gesture was so subtle she almost thought she had imagined it. But when her eyes landed on the handwriting, her body stiffened. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it, the paper cool against her skin. The name written on the front hit her like a wave, Liam. The first love she thought she had lost forever. For years, she had buried his memory, telling herself life had simply moved on. Daniel was her present, her future. Liam was a ghost from her past. But here, on the morning of her wedding day, his name had returned like an unanswered question. Memories stirred instantly, nights of laughter under the stars, words whispered with promises too young to keep, the way his touch once made her believe in forever. She had told herself she was over him, but the truth was he had never left her heart completely. And now, a letter from him sat in her hands, as if the universe had conspired to test her vows before she even spoke them. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she broke the seal. The paper unfolded slowly, her eyes scanning the first line. It wasn't a casual greeting. It wasn't light or easy. It was heavy, like words carrying years of silence, grief, and unfinished business. She felt her pulse pound in her ears, louder than any music that would play at her wedding. The first words carved into her soul like a blade, bringing both warmth and pain at once. It wasn't just a letter, it was a key, unlocking a door she thought had been sealed forever. Her stomach tightened, her blood ran cold, and her thoughts spun in 1,000 directions she couldn't contain. Every sentence was a whisper from the past echoing into her present. The room around her blurred. The sounds of the wedding preparations faded, replaced by the thundering sound of her own heartbeat. It was as if time itself had paused to let her decide whether to keep reading or to toss the letter aside and continue walking toward the life she had chosen. But curiosity is stronger than fear, and her eyes couldn't resist moving across the page. In that moment, she felt as if Liam was standing in front of her again, speaking through the ink, reaching across years of distance to remind her of everything they once had. She wanted to believe it was just a letter of goodbye, a closure she never received. But the tone was different, more urgent, more desperate, almost like a confession. Emily's body grew colder with each word, her hands gripping the paper tightly. She knew that whatever came next could change her entire life. The wedding dress, the guests, the vows, all of it felt fragile, hanging by a thread she could no longer control. And as her eyes moved to the next line, she realized this was only the beginning of a story that would turn her world upside down, but the worst was yet to come. Emily's eyes traced the next lines, her breath unsteady as the story within the letter began to unfold. Liam's words didn't sound like the voice of someone who had forgotten her. They carried the weight of years spent longing, of questions left unanswered. He confessed that he had never chosen to leave her, though that was the truth she had believed for so long. The letters of his handwriting seemed alive, filled with emotions that spilled out between the spaces. Each word tightened her chest, forcing her to question everything she thought she knew about the past. He wrote about nights when sleep refused to come, nights when his mind replayed every moment they had shared. He spoke of the quiet torment of wondering if she hated him, if she thought of him as a coward who had walked away without reason. Emily's hands shook as she read, because that was exactly what she had believed, that he had chosen to abandon her. Now, for the first time, she was seeing a different truth. His pain was etched so clearly that she could almost feel it radiating from the paper. The letter carried a mix of love and sorrow, like a melody torn between hope and regret. Liam admitted that even when years passed, his heart had remained tethered to hers. He described small, ordinary moments that reminded him of her, an old song on the radio, the scent of rain, the way laughter sometimes echoed too sharply in an empty room. These weren't words of a man who had moved on. They were confessions of someone who had never let go, no matter how far life had pulled him away. Emily blinked rapidly, her vision blurring with the threat of tears. The emotions she had buried for so long were clawing their way back to the surface. She remembered how she had cried herself to sleep when Liam disappeared, how she had whispered his name into the darkness, waiting for a reply that never came. She had told herself to grow stronger, to build a life without him. But now, every line in the letter was undoing years of effort, reopening wounds she thought were healed. Yet, buried in his words of devotion, there was something else, something she couldn't ignore. A sentence written with hesitation, as though Liam himself feared the impact of revealing it. He hinted that his departure hadn't been his choice at all. His voice, even through ink and paper, trembled as he revealed that someone close to her had forced them apart. Emily's fingers gripped the letter tighter, her pulse quickening with confusion. The idea gnawed at her mind, shaking the foundation of everything she believed. Who could have done such a thing? Her family? A friend? Or Daniel? The thought crossed her mind, sharp and terrifying, though she pushed it away almost instantly. It seemed impossible. Daniel was the man she was about to marry, the man who had stood beside her through so much. And yet, the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was already spreading. Emily's world tilted as she tried to make sense of Liam's confession. Could love this powerful have been torn apart by someone's interference? She thought about the years of distance, the unanswered questions, and how easily her life had shifted toward another path. Was it all built on lies? Her chest ached, not only from the love she still felt but from the anger beginning to stir within her. Her gaze lingered on the page, searching for more, desperate for clarity. But the letter only gave pieces, fragments of a truth that seemed too heavy to be revealed all at once. Every sentence pulled her deeper into a story she thought had ended years ago. She wasn't just reading words, she was unraveling her own history. And as she held the fragile paper in her hands, Emily knew this wasn't the end of Liam's revelations. The letter had more to say, more secrets hidden between the lines. She could already feel it, the truth was only beginning to surface, and what came next would change everything she believed about the man waiting for her at the altar. Emily's hands trembled as she folded the letter halfway, staring at the words that refused to leave her mind. Could Liam really be telling the truth? Every memory of their love came rushing back, colliding with the life she had built since then. She thought about Daniel, her groom, who was waiting just a few steps away, ready to promise forever. And yet, in this fragile moment, forever felt uncertain. The church bells echoed in the distance, but inside her, all she could hear was the pounding of her own heart. Her gaze drifted to the mirror, where her reflection stared back at her, a bride dressed in white, glowing with everything she should have felt. But the glow was gone. What she saw wasn't joy, it was doubt, sharp and unrelenting. She thought of her parents, sitting in the front row, so proud of the union that meant stability, tradition, and family. She thought of the guests, expecting smiles and celebration. The weight of their expectations pressed down on her chest until it was hard to breathe. Emily's mind replayed Liam's words like a song she couldn't escape. He claimed he had never left her willingly, that his absence had been forced. The sincerity of his voice echoed in her thoughts, and though she wanted to push it away, something in her heart recognized the truth. The memory of his eyes, the way they once lit up when he looked at her, refused to fade. Could it be that everything she believed was a lie carefully crafted by someone she trusted? Her lips parted in a shaky breath as she thought about Daniel again. His steady presence, his promises, his charm. She had convinced herself that he was her safe harbor after Liam disappeared. He had been there to wipe her tears, to tell her she deserved happiness, to make her believe in love again. But now, doubt slipped in like a shadow. What if the man who promised to protect her had been the very reason her first love was torn away? The thought was unbearable, yet she couldn't shake it. Emily tried to remind herself of Daniel's kindness, of the way he looked at her, of the plans they had made. But the more she clung to those thoughts, the more Liam's letter burned in her hands. The truth wasn't complete yet, but what little had been revealed had already cracked something deep inside her. It was as if the foundation of her entire life was beginning to crumble. Her chest tightened as she thought of her family again. They wanted this wedding more than she did, pressing her toward it, reminding her of the security it would bring, of the life that would unfold so neatly if she just said yes. But now, Emily wondered if all of it was built on convenience instead of love. The storm inside her heart grew louder, and she realized she no longer knew which path was truly hers. Her fingers traced the edges of the paper, almost as if she hoped the answer was hidden between the lines she hadn't read yet. What if Liam's words were only the beginning? What if the letter held more truths, each one heavier than the last? She felt both terrified and desperate to know, caught in the grip of a story she hadn't chosen but now couldn't escape. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, trying to block out the swirl of emotions. But the silence of the room only made the weight of the decision heavier. Should she walk down the aisle pretending everything was perfect, or should she dig deeper into the storm Liam had unleashed? She knew that one step in either direction would change her life forever. And as she unfolded the letter once more, her pulse raced. The truth wasn't fully revealed, and the real name, the one who had truly stood in the way, was still hidden in the shadows. Emily's story was only beginning to unravel, and what she was about to read would shatter her world even further. Emily's eyes clung to the ink on the page, her breath shallow as if the words themselves had stolen the air from her lungs. She read the line again, hoping she had misunderstood, but there was no mistake. Liam wrote Daniel's name. Not in passing, not as a rumor, but as the reason they had been torn apart. Her groom, the man she was about to marry, was the one who had stood between them. The blood drained from her face, leaving her pale, as though the letter itself had pulled her back into the past she thought was buried. The memories came in flashes, nights of unanswered calls, messages that never reached her, stories Daniel whispered when she was too broken to question. He had told her Liam was selfish, unreliable, incapable of loving her the way she deserved. She had clung to Daniel's voice because it sounded steady when her world had crumbled. But now, reading Liam's confession, every word Daniel once said twisted into a weapon, and Emily realized she might have built her entire life on lies. Her hands shook violently, the letter crinkling beneath her grip. If Liam's words were true, then Daniel had not just lied, he had stolen years from her, years of love she should have lived. He had painted Liam as a villain so that he could step into the role of savior. And she had let him. The betrayal cut so deep it felt like the ground beneath her was splitting apart, threatening to swallow her whole. She thought of the vows she had prepared, of the future she had pictured, and felt sick. Every tender word Daniel had spoken, every touch, every smile, now seemed poisoned. How could she look into his eyes, knowing they may have hidden such darkness? And worse, how could she ever believe in love again if the man she was about to marry had manipulated her heart from the very beginning? Emily pressed the back of her hand to her mouth, trying to keep the sob from breaking free. She wasn't ready to let anyone hear her pain. Guests were waiting outside, unaware of the storm that raged inside her. To them, today was a celebration. To her, it was quickly becoming a prison. And yet, she couldn't stop reading, couldn't stop herself from uncovering the truths that threatened to destroy everything. The words on the page blurred as her tears welled, but she forced herself to continue. Liam didn't write with anger, he wrote with sorrow, with the kind of heartbreak that never fully healed. He didn't want revenge, he wanted her to finally see the truth. That was what broke Emily most of all. His love had not died, even after all these years, even after all the lies. Her chest ached as she tried to process the impossible. If Daniel had been capable of such betrayal, what else could he be hiding? What other truths had he buried beneath charm and promises? Emily felt her heart pounding against her ribs, warning her that she wasn't ready for the answers, yet pushing her closer to them all the same. The letter trembled in her grip as she read on, each line more haunting than the last. Liam's voice on the page grew heavier, as if he knew what would come after this revelation. He begged her not to turn away, not to marry without knowing the full truth. His words carried a weight Emily could not ignore. It was as if he was reaching across the years to stop her from making the biggest mistake of her life. And then she saw it, the warning. The ink seemed darker, more urgent, as if Liam himself had pressed harder into the page. Daniel's betrayal was not the only secret. There was more, something bigger, something that would shake her to her core if she dared to uncover it. Emily froze, staring at the unfinished letter, her heart beating so loudly it drowned out the world. What could possibly be worse than this? Emily stood at the entrance of the church, the letter hidden close to her chest like a secret too heavy to bear. The music began, soft and sweet, but her heart pounded in chaos, each beat drowning out the melody. She forced her feet forward, the long white gown trailing behind her, yet every step felt like she was sinking deeper into quicksand. The faces of family and friends lit up with joy, their smiles radiant, their eyes shining with hope. None of them knew the truth burning in her hands, the truth that had already set her soul on fire. As she moved down the aisle, her gaze lifted to Daniel. He stood tall at the altar, the picture of a proud groom waiting for his bride. To everyone else, he was love, commitment, stability. But to Emily, he was now a mystery she couldn't untangle, a man whose smile no longer brought comfort but questions. His expression was calm, almost rehearsed, and she wondered, how many of his words had been rehearsed too? The air inside the church felt thick, pressing down on her lungs as she tried to breathe. Every step closer to Daniel was a war within her, torn between what she had once believed and what she now feared. The bouquet trembled in her hands, the flowers losing their beauty in her eyes, petals reminding her of fragile promises that could shatter with a single truth. The aisle, once a path to happiness, now felt like a march toward betrayal. Her eyes swept across the guests, and for a brief second, she envied their ignorance. They clapped softly, some wiping tears of joy, others whispering about how radiant she looked. They didn't know that beneath her veil was a storm, that her heart was drowning in doubt. They didn't know the letter's words had poisoned every memory she shared with Daniel. They didn't know that she was walking toward a man she could no longer trust. The closer she came, the louder the whispers in her chest grew. They weren't whispers of love anymore, but echoes of warning. Could she really vow forever to someone who may have stolen her past? Could she promise loyalty to a man who might have built their love on lies? The music swelled, but in her ears, it sounded more like a funeral march than a wedding hymn. Daniel's eyes locked with hers as she neared the altar, and for a fleeting moment, she searched for the boy she once thought she loved. But instead of comfort, she felt a chill. His smile seemed too polished, too confident, as if he knew something she didn't. Emily's chest tightened, the weight of the truth threatening to spill out right there before everyone. She wanted to scream, to throw the letter at his feet and demand answers, but her body betrayed her. She kept walking, her feet carrying her toward him even as her soul begged to turn back. The distance between them shrank, yet the space in her heart grew wider, a canyon of distrust that no smile could bridge. Each step felt like a choice she wasn't ready to make. The priest cleared his throat, signaling the ceremony's beginning, but Emily barely heard him. The church blurred, her vision swimming with tears she fought to hold back. She clutched the letter tighter beneath her gown, as though Liam's words were the only thing keeping her upright. Her chest ached, and the air grew colder, as if the walls themselves knew what secrets stood between bride and groom. And just when she thought she could hold her mask in place, just when she believed she might survive the ceremony long enough to decide later, it happened. A voice rose from the pews, clear, certain, cutting through the silence like a blade. It wasn't part of the vows, nor the blessings. It was something else entirely. And in that moment, the world inside the church shifted forever. The voice rang out again, steady and impossible to ignore. Emily froze, her heart hammering, as all eyes turned toward the source. A man in the audience slowly rose, his posture firm yet deliberate, commanding attention without even trying. He cleared his throat, and in that single moment, the room's air thickened with tension. Whispers swirled like a storm, the soft hum of expectation replaced by an urgent, electric anticipation. Emily felt her knees weaken, the church floor threatening to give way beneath her. The man's eyes locked onto hers, and she felt the weight of his words before he even spoke. "I saw everything," he said, voice low but cutting through the chatter. "Years ago, Daniel didn't just step into her life, he manipulated it. He lied. He twisted the truth. He kept them apart." The room went silent, the kind of silence that hums in your ears, heavy and impossible to ignore. Emily's chest tightened, her stomach twisting with disbelief and confirmation. The letter had been true, every word. Gasps erupted from the crowd, mingled with whispers that spread like wildfire. Some faces paled, others widened in shock. Her family looked frozen, unsure of how to react, their smiles replaced by confusion and concern. Guests shifted in their seats, leaning forward to catch every syllable, every detail, as if the story unraveling before them was a secret they had no right to hear. Emily's knees threatened to buckle under the intensity of the moment. The man continued, his voice calm but deliberate, recounting details only someone who had been there could know. He described nights Emily had been kept apart from Liam, moments of deception she had never imagined. He spoke of Daniel's careful lies, the way he framed events to make it seem like Liam had walked away. Emily's hands clenched the edges of her gown, trying to steady herself. Each word was a blow, yet also a confirmation she had been desperate to hear. Her mind raced, replaying flashes of the past, calls that went unanswered, messages that vanished, the quiet emptiness she had felt for years. Now, every piece fit together, forming a painful, crystal-clear picture of deception. She realized how carefully Daniel had constructed a life around her while systematically keeping Liam out of it. The betrayal, so close and intimate, made her blood run cold. The witness's presence alone shifted the energy in the church. Guests whispered among themselves, their curiosity mixing with shock. Emily's breath caught in her throat, her pulse threatening to burst through her chest. How could someone stand up in front of all of them and reveal a truth so personal, so intimate? And yet, she felt a strange relief, as if this confirmation, even in public, was something her soul had been demanding. Then, he dropped a detail even more shocking, a revelation that made Emily stagger inwardly. "And there's more," he said, lowering his voice so only she could feel its weight. "What you think you know about your future, it's about to change. There are things hidden that Daniel never wanted you to see, things that could alter everything." Her breath hitched. The storm inside her was rising faster than ever, every pulse screaming at her to pay attention. Emily's eyes darted around the church, taking in the faces of everyone she knew, realizing that the secrets they were hearing would reshape their perception of Daniel forever. Yet, amid the shock, her own heart wrestled with a mix of fear, anger, and a strange spark of hope. Liam's words, the witness's testimony, it was all building toward a truth she hadn't yet fully grasped. And just when she thought the revelations had reached their peak, the witness leaned slightly forward, his gaze piercing hers. "What I've told you is only part of the story," he murmured, his voice almost conspiratorial. "There's something else, something bigger, something that will change not just your past, Emily, but the life you think is waiting for you right now." Her heart froze, knowing the next revelation could shatter everything. Emily's trembling fingers reached the bottom of the envelope, where a small folded note had been tucked away, almost hidden in plain sight. She unfolded it carefully, her pulse pounding, afraid to see what it might contain. Her eyes scanned the neat handwriting, and she felt a shiver run down her spine. Liam hadn't just written a letter, he had left her something more tangible, something that carried the weight of his presence even after all these years. Her breath caught, the anticipation pressing down like a storm ready to break. The note was brief, yet it spoke volumes. Liam explained that he had recorded a message, a voice recording that held everything he had never been able to say in person. It contained his side of the story, the truth about the lies, the manipulations, and the choices that had been forced upon him. Emily's hands shook as she imagined hearing his voice again, the boy she had once loved confessing the secrets of their past. Her heart ached with a mixture of longing and dread. The realization hit her hard. The wedding she had dreamed of, the perfect day she had pictured since she was a child, was now built on layers of deception. Every detail, every vow she had rehearsed, seemed fragile and meaningless in the face of Liam's revelation. The altar, the flowers, even Daniel's smile, everything felt tainted by the secrets she had just uncovered. Emily's mind raced, trying to reconcile her longing for love with the weight of betrayal. Her fingers tightened around the note as she imagined the recording waiting to be played. What would Liam sound like? Would she hear his pain, his regret, the love that had never faded? The thought both thrilled and terrified her. This was no longer just a letter, it was a doorway to the past she thought she had left behind, a path that could unravel the life she had carefully built. Emily felt the air around her thicken as the magnitude of the discovery sank in. Every guest, every moment of the ceremony, now seemed suspended in a fragile bubble that could burst with the first note of Liam's voice. She realized she was standing at the edge of a choice that could redefine everything, continue with the wedding as if nothing had happened, or confront a truth so raw that it might change her life forever. Her heart beat rapidly as she considered what the recording might reveal. Would it expose Daniel's lies further? Would it confirm every suspicion Liam had planted with his letter? The questions were endless, and each one gnawed at her resolve. Emily's mind replayed years of memories, both joyful and painful, wondering how much of her life had been shaped by deception. She looked down at the letter and the note together, the two pieces of Liam's truth in her hands, and felt the enormity of what she had been given. It wasn't just a confession, it was a lifeline to the reality she had never been allowed to see. The letter had shaken her, but the recording would shatter her illusions completely. Emily's gaze lifted toward Daniel, standing unaware at the altar. She felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and an aching longing for the man she had once loved. How could she move forward knowing the depth of the secrets surrounding them? The note promised more than a story. It promised revelation, confrontation, and perhaps, closure. And as she held the envelope close, Emily realized the truth had only just begun to surface. The recording awaited, carrying Liam's voice, his pain, and the answers to questions she hadn't even known she needed to ask. This wedding, this day, and this love, everything was about to change. Later that night, Emily found herself alone in her room, the letter and note lying on the dresser like silent witnesses to the storm she was about to unleash. The church, the guests, even Daniel's expectant face faded from her mind. She pressed play on the small recorder, and the first words of Liam's voice filled the room, shaking her to the core. It was him, every tremor, every hesitation, every ounce of truth carried in his tone, reaching across the years straight to her heart. His voice was raw, filled with regret and longing. Liam described nights of waiting, moments when he had wanted to reach her but had been stopped at every turn. He told her about the manipulation, the lies Daniel had carefully orchestrated, and how it had forced him to leave without saying goodbye. Emily's chest tightened with every revelation, as if the weight of his words had physically pressed against her ribcage. She could almost feel the invisible chains that had held them apart for so long. As the recording continued, Emily closed her eyes, letting each detail wash over her. Liam described conversations he had never shared, moments of stolen glances, and times when Daniel had purposefully created distance between them. The depth of the deception made her stomach churn, her mind spinning with anger and disbelief. How could she have been so blind? How could someone she trusted so completely manipulate her entire life without her noticing? The recording shifted, Liam's voice softer now, almost intimate, recounting the love they once shared. Emily could hear the boy she had loved, the man who had never truly left her heart. Memories she thought were buried, smiles, laughter, the way he had looked at her, flooded back in vivid detail. Each memory collided with the present, leaving her torn between longing and devastation. Her hands gripped the recorder tightly as he spoke of Daniel's final manipulations, the exact moments that had forced him to step away. Emily's tears fell freely now, streaming down her cheeks as though trying to erase the years of confusion and pain. Every word Liam spoke was like a hammer, breaking apart the walls she had built to protect herself, revealing the raw vulnerability she had ignored for too long. The recording paused, and Emily inhaled shakily, almost afraid to continue. She knew the last sentence would change everything, but a part of her wasn't ready to face it. Her heart ached with anticipation and fear, knowing that the truth waiting at the end would demand a choice she could no longer avoid. She pressed play again, each second stretching like an eternity. Then came the last sentence. Liam's voice wavered, carrying the weight of everything unsaid. "I still love you. Even if it's too late." Emily's body trembled as if the words themselves had struck her, unraveling every thought, every plan, every belief. Her chest constricted, and she could feel the heartbreak spread through her like wildfire, leaving no part of her untouched. She sank to the bed, tears falling freely, the recorder still playing silently in the aftermath. The room seemed colder now, heavier, filled with the ghosts of her past and the love that had never truly left her. The contrast between the life she thought she had and the reality Liam had revealed was unbearable. She had always imagined closure would be easier, simpler, less painful. And in the quiet that followed, Emily realized she was at a crossroads. The choice she faced was no longer about wedding vows or appearances. It was about truth, love, and freedom. The recording had shattered the illusion, and the question now hung in the air. Could she ever go back to the life she had been preparing for, or had everything changed forever? Emily sat on the edge of her bed, the recorder silent, Liam's final words echoing through her mind. "I still love you. Even if it's too late." The room felt suffocating, every shadow looming larger than before. Memories of their young love, stolen glances, laughter under the summer sun, late-night promises whispered in secret, came rushing back like a tide she hadn't anticipated. Each recollection pierced her heart, making the reality of the present even more unbearable. Her wedding dress hung untouched in the closet, crisp and white, but it no longer symbolized joy. It was a reminder of the life she thought she wanted. Her hands trembled as she traced the fabric with longing and regret. The vows she had rehearsed, words carefully chosen to declare lifelong commitment, now felt hollow. Every syllable seemed tainted by the lies that had surrounded her for years. Emily's chest tightened as she realized that the life she had meticulously built for herself was nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion. The love she had thought she was marrying into was entangled with betrayal and deceit. Tears blurred her vision as she thought of Daniel. His smile, his gentle reassurances, his presence at the altar, all of it now carried a sinister undertone. How could someone so close have orchestrated such a deception? The anger rose, sharp and bitter, yet mingled with sorrow that clawed at her heart. The man she was about to marry, the man she had trusted with her future, had hidden a web of lies, and she had almost stepped willingly into it. Emily's mind raced, torn between duty, expectation, and the undeniable pull of her first love. Liam's voice on the recording had awakened a longing she had tried to bury, a truth she couldn't ignore. The years apart, the pain, the confusion, it all converged in a single, unbearable moment. Her soul ached for closure, for honesty, for the love that had been stolen from her. She knew that proceeding with the wedding would mean burying that truth forever. She glanced around the room, the soft glow of the lamp casting shadows on the walls. The decision before her was monumental. It wasn't just about Daniel, or Liam, or even the ceremony. It was about her life, her heart, and the integrity of her choices. Every fiber of her being screamed for authenticity, for the courage to face what she truly wanted, even if it meant breaking expectations and shattering plans. The minutes stretched, her thoughts spiraling between heartbreak and resolve. She replayed Liam's confession, his tone filled with sincerity, pain, and a love that had never faded. Each word reinforced the truth she had been ignoring, the love she had left behind, and the deception that had consumed her present. The weight of the realization pressed on her chest, heavy and unrelenting, demanding action. Emily rose slowly, the wedding dress now a symbol of both captivity and liberation. She ran her fingers along its delicate lace, feeling the contrast between expectation and reality. She couldn't pretend anymore. She couldn't exchange vows under a veil of lies, not when the truth had finally reached her. Her heart had made its choice, but acting on it in front of everyone would be the ultimate test of courage. The sound of the recorder, still resting beside her, reminded her that love had not ended, that the past was still alive, and that the future was hers to reclaim. Emily drew a deep breath, feeling the storm inside her settle into a sharp focus. She could either follow the path everyone expected, or she could step into the unknown, guided by the honesty she had just uncovered. The weight of that decision was unbearable yet electrifying. And with the world watching, Emily realized she was standing at the precipice of her life. The choice she made now would define her forever. Would she surrender to duty and deception, or embrace truth and freedom? Her heart knew the answer, and for the first time in years, she felt alive with the possibility of reclaiming the love that had never truly left her. Emily took a shaky breath as she stepped toward the altar, the murmurs of guests fading into a distant hum. Her gown swayed with each determined step, the fabric brushing against her fingertips as if urging her forward. Every eye in the room was on her, some filled with anticipation, others with confusion, but Emily no longer cared about their judgments. Her heart was loud, clearer than ever, and it demanded honesty over pretense, truth over ceremony. She faced Daniel, whose confident smile faltered when he saw the storm in her eyes. For the first time, Emily truly saw him, not as the man she had imagined marrying, but as someone who had manipulated her love for his own gain. Her chest tightened with a mixture of sorrow and resolve, memories of their life together clashing violently with the realization of his lies. The crowd waited, breaths held, the air heavy with suspense. Tears glistened in her eyes as she raised her voice, each word deliberate, weighted with emotion. "I cannot marry a man who built our love on lies," she said, letting every syllable resonate through the room. Silence followed, thick and deafening, as the gravity of her words sank in. Gasps and whispers rippled through the crowd, but Emily stood unwavering, finally liberated from the chains of deception that had haunted her heart for years. She turned away from Daniel, each step down the aisle echoing like a declaration of freedom. The flowers, the music, even the chandeliers above seemed to witness her courage, casting light on a path she had carved for herself. Guests leaned forward, some in awe, some in disbelief, but Emily felt only clarity. Every step was a reclaiming of her own life, every movement a testament to the power of truth over obligation. The letter, the note, the recording, all of it had led her here. Liam's words, though distant in time, had guided her toward authenticity. She realized that love is not a contract, nor a performance for others. It is honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to choose what truly nurtures the soul. Emily's freedom was not just from Daniel, but from the fear, the doubt, and the expectations that had shadowed her heart. As she walked past the altar, she glimpsed Liam waiting quietly at the back of the church. No words were exchanged, but the connection between them was unmistakable. The boy she had loved, the man who had endured loss and separation, now stood as a reminder that love can endure, survive, and ultimately guide a person toward their own truth. Emily's heart fluttered with a cautious hope, fragile yet undeniable. The guests began to murmur, some expressing shock, others admiration, but Emily hardly noticed. She felt a weight lift from her shoulders, replaced by a profound sense of self-possession. Walking away had not been an act of cowardice, but of bravery. She had chosen her own path, her own story, and in doing so, she had reclaimed her life from shadows of deceit. Outside, the night air wrapped around her like a gentle embrace. Emily inhaled deeply, feeling the world expand beyond the confines of expectation and obligation. Her journey had been filled with heartbreak, revelations, and impossible choices, but she now understood the ultimate lesson: love cannot thrive in darkness. It demands light, honesty, and courage. And in that moment, as she stepped into freedom and uncertainty alike, Emily's story became more than just a tale of betrayal and heartbreak. It became a testament to the power of truth, the resilience of the heart, and the unyielding necessity of following one's own path. Every step she took was a reminder: love only survives where truth lives. Emily's story shows us that sometimes the truth comes when we least expect it. Secrets may break us, but they also free us. Love cannot be forced, and trust is the foundation of every vow. What would you have done if you were in Emily's place? Tell us in the comments. And if you want to uncover more stories filled with love, betrayal, and shocking twists, don't forget to subscribe. Behind every wedding, there is always a secret waiting to be told.